Hey everyone, Temporal here, and for this session, we are taking a look at your Overwatch's most recent tier list. This is a tier list for season 32. It's the heroes. Let's see where they put them. Maybe they did a fantastic job, and I'll have to change my thumbnail. Maybe they did a terrible job. Our most recent review was Samito's, I want to say, 2 seasons ago. So let's see how your Overwatch did this time.
What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for your
What
Overwatch.
do we have?
Since it was half a year since Blizzard balanced the game, it's been a long time since we've made an updated tier list.
I mean, metas shift even without Blizzard updating the game. That happens pretty frequently. We could talk about StarCraft, the original, for example, where the meta was updating years after that game had been out without any support, but okay.
There recently was a patch, but I think more importantly, after time has settled and players have
Oh, good. He's covering that. Good on you, Frito.
gotten used to the previous changes from last year, we've got some good updates for you and tips on how to survive.
I feel like you could have done one of these before then, but hey, you've got competing video series just like I do, so that's fair.
Playing Overwatch 1 in 2022, as we all get hyped up and wait.
I haven't actually seen this one yet, James Daly. I'm reacting to this blind, so I may have to change my thumbnail. I did the thumbnail with expectations, but if I have to change the thumbnail, I'll change the thumbnail. It might be a great tier list we're looking at.
For the ominous thing that we know is coming next at some point. Soon, TM,
What do we
hopefully
got?
sooner rather than later. Overall, I'd say the game's pretty balanced and a lot of the characters work like you would expect them to, but due to shakeups in the metagame, a couple stand out as way better than the rest, and a few you want to be careful about picking.
Okay, a few stand out as way better than the rest. So if we're looking at ones that stand out as way better than the rest, the ones I expect him or people in general to say on this would probably be like Zen, Brig, Bap. I don't really like doing this because now I've listed half the supports, and are half the supports really that much better than the list? No, our supports are really somewhat balanced, but I expect we're probably going to hear these. Maybe we're going to hear Tracer because Tracer's playtime doesn't go away, and then maybe we're going to hear Echo Sombra Hanzo. Maybe that's what we're going to hear. Let's see what it is, guys. Let's see what it is.
We'll give you
Which
all the
heroes
tips you
stand out
need
above
for
the
season
rest?
32 right after this break. Gamers, I know the
Okay. Sorry, it's your ad read. We're skipping your ad read. Maybe we shouldn't skip your ad read. Maybe it would be more friendly if we didn't. We're going to skip your ad read.
2022, the tier list. I want to first
Okay.
recap some of the major thematic changes from last year that have taken their toll and now in combination with recent changes have kind of cemented, I think. A very important one is that the ranged hit scan characters had been nerfed repeatedly last year, where
It didn't matter until we hit the fall-off nerf, but sure.
the range of characters like McCree and Ashe have much more strict cutoffs to where they're effective.
Too much so for Ashe, I'd even argue. But okay.
And although Widow can one-shot, she only has 175 health, meaning she's really glass, and a lot of characters can fight back. Also, on top of that, we still have the lingering hangover of Overwatch 1, where there's just a lot of stuns in the game, and a lot of
The lingering hangover of Overwatch 1. Okay, I guess that's one way to describe it. There are stuns in this game, but it's nowhere near the worst it's been.
easy disables, meaning that characters that want to
And, again, there has to be some of the evil that is stuns or disables or defense matrices or shields. There has to be some level of that evil to control the game and not just make it anyone goes around a corner and they instantly get deleted. But we'll see.
get in on you, you have a lot of options in order to chain stun them, in order to punish them rather easily. The result of this has made a pretty balanced version of the game, but all
Yeah, very balanced.
centering around medium range threats.
I agree we're in a balanced version of the game. The reason that we know we're in a pretty balanced version of the game is for a year and a half. For a while, we had Brawl sort of as the meta. We had a Zen Ball meta. We moved on to a Brawl meta. We moved back to a Zen Ball meta. So we've been able to flirt with Winston-based metas like Double Bubble or Six Man in between there. And regardless of which one of those was meta, the other options, poke comps, dive comps, generally in the Zen Ball form, sometimes in the Winston Anna form, or Brawl comps, sometimes in the Winston Moira form, sometimes in the Reinhardt form, have never been far behind. They haven't been significantly stronger. So we've had a very balanced meta. I don't know that I'd put any stock in it's been balanced around mid-range, though. Like, Dive has been pretty darn powerful using Hammond, Tracer. Sure, Zen is sort of a mid-range hero or a long-range hero. Ash and Echo have been in the meta, but like they can be medium range heroes, sure, but like Mei was meta in Brawl, she's really a short range hero. Cassie's a medium range hero in Brawl, but then most of Brawl is short range with your Reinhardts, with your Briggs, with your Zaryas. We've had Sombra in the meta for Dive. That's also very short range. Dive generally is short. You might have Poke Dive, but it's still, we're leaning short. So I'd actually say we've had more short range type meta stuff. 6-man is definitely a very short range meta. I'd say we've more revolved around a short range meta, a short to medium range meta, definitely not a medium range meta on its whole.
And the epitome of that is two major benefactors.
I think it might be important to know if your Overwatch is talking about ranked ladder meta versus scrim meta. Oh, he's definitely talking about ladder meta, but, you know, while there are differences for sure between ladder meta and scrim meta or professional meta, organized play meta, and we'll pay some attention to that, I can't help but have a little bit of a bias towards organized play meta. Like, I'm never going to be able to avoid that, but I will try to pull this back. I will pull this back towards a ladder meta and still look at, okay, let's see how they're doing, etc. And, you know, the reality is ladder, once it gets serious, once it gets to GM Masters, generally does a pretty good job. Now, yes, I'm aware, I hate this, but there has been quite a bit of hog running around on ladder, even in GM, that really isn't true to nearly the same degree in organized play. So I see this, and I'll be less harsh on this than I normally would, but that still doesn't, like, it's wrong. It gets crushed, and we know it should be getting crushed on ladder, but we'll see.
That I'm putting in S tier, Zenyatta and Roadhog.
Okay, so he's going to tell us why Roadhog's in S tier.
Wouldn't go so far to say they're must picks. Necessarily, they can be countered, but I think they're the most reliable, and you're going to notice a big majority of kills going through either Discord Orb or Hog's durability and playmaking.
Okay, so I'll go back to those because they're here. I want them on screen to talk about them. I'm good with Zen. Zen in higher level games is absolutely meta. You're seeing a lot of Zen. I've got no real issue with that. Zen has also been very, very common in organized play. Obviously, there's comps that don't use him, but Zen sees plenty of use. Putting Zen in S tier isn't really bothering me here. If we were going by pick rates, not strength, and I think he's going by strength, not pick rates, I might actually lean more towards Brig for some of the stuff. Again, Brig sees her pairing with Bap, her pairing with Zen, her pairing with Anna, whereas Zen sees a pairing with Brig, sometimes sees a pairing with Bap, is never with Anna. Like, Brig is definitely a more common pick, but if we're going with raw strength, I'm good with Zen up here. If we're going with pick rate, Hog makes sense for upper ladder. Hog is common, but not terribly common. If we're looking at the entire ladder distribution, don't get me wrong, Hog sees play, Hog sees a fair amount of play. I'm not convinced we'd still call that S tier levels of pick rate for play, so we still need to understand if we're talking pick rate or strength, that sort of thing. And Hog does see more than he should, quite frankly, in up here in GM, and GM will figure that out eventually. I think if GM was a little more tryhard right now, we might see a little less Roadhog, but we're sort of in a place where the GM ladder has gotten a little skimpy. And we've got certain players, even certain collegiate players, just locking the Hog. Hirsch, Heartache, yeah, I'm talking to you guys. Okay, now, to be fair, some of them have backed off a little bit. So, yeah, there is a fair amount of Hog going on. I don't think he's powerful enough to warrant it, but I see where this is coming from in terms of the eyeballs do determine that there's a fair amount of Hog. I still probably couldn't put this in S tier, though, both from a it's too weak standpoint, and even if we're looking at pick rates, yeah, it's common, but it's not common enough across the entire ladder, and it again isn't actually, like, it is shut downable in GM here. Organa is in every game from gold to diamonds. I mean, there's a fair amount of it, but again, then you don't have your Zens. So, like, if you're saying your Hogs are there, you don't have your Zens, you see where I'm going with this.
Of kills going through either Discord Orb or Hog's durability and playmaking. The thing about how the game's been restructured, a lot of the tank characters don't feel too tanky, and their job is to do damage anyway.
Tank characters have always done lots of damage. Tank characters' balance was never that they didn't do damage. It had a lot more to do originally with range limitations.
So
Yeah.
Roadhog can play certain positions on the map and just be a lingering threat at the
It generally has had to do with range limitations and then with a build failure to be able to 100 to 0 stuff. They can get like 150 damage to a 200 damage hero pretty easy, but they struggle with that last 50 damage, that sort of thing. Reliability or ability to finish things off, you could say. Hog obviously doesn't really have that issue, but he doesn't have the barrier, the thing to push with, etc.
start and throughout fights without needing a lot of help. Take a breather is an amazing ability, and on
Sure.
top of that, when you combine with some of the
lot of
range
people
damage going
underestimate breather.
down and the buff he got that is similar to Overwatch 2, where you gain less ult from shooting him, there's a lot
Yep.
of times where Hog can kind of roam around
He's totally seeing how many times he can fit Overwatch 2 in there to see if that'll cause it to trend better, but okay.
contested, and the old benefits you're used to gaining, like getting a lot of ult off him, for example, no longer exist, because not only does he give you less ult,
He gives you less
when
ult,
he's
but you
using
still
take
get
a
decent
breather,
ult.
there's damage reduction, so there's a lot of times where you feel like you can't kill him or
Okay.
really punish him by poking him like you're used to. And then Zenyatta, as we were talking with a lot of the range characters being
Zen's
reined in, well, Zen didn't lose any range damage, which means he's a pretty competent threat up against a lot of the ranged characters that normally were kind of dominating.
Sure. I mean, Zen, in some sense, lost range damage when he lost his Discord, when Discord went from 30 to 25%. But
The
okay.
DPS category. Not
But
only
overall, I
that,
agree with
any
that.
character that wants to engage due to this medium range nature of the game can get discorded and easily blown up quickly. And with all of the stuns that could
Sure.
protect Zen and the options you have to keep him
So I still need to understand if this tier list is more around pick rate or power of the hero, because I'm struggling right now. Like, yes, Hog has some individual carry potential. It can be very shut down, especially by the Annas that we're seeing, but he does have some. Zen is a powerful hero, but I don't think the pick rates across the ladder are going to reflect this. So I need more of a feel from your Overwatch here of, is this based on pick rates? Is this based on strength of the hero? Is this based on pick rates in GM, in Masters Plus GM, in the entirety of the ladder, in the middle part of the ladder? What are we talking about?
alive? It's very difficult to get on him and focus him like you need to.
Your hard stuck 3.9? Okay, well, come get a coaching session, Ronan. Hopefully we can help get you over that hump into GM.
Without it being too expensive, without having to run past a Roadhog, getting hooked and insta-killed in order to do it. As you guys know, I'm usually reluctant to put things in S tier, but I think these are the two characters that if you do not directly counter, you either lose kind of hard or probably need to mirror. Mainly because a lot of the frontline damage you're going to put out will just be significantly less if you don't have Zenyatta to punish the tanks.
Come on, move on.
Kind of solo counters just main tanks as a concept. And then on top
I'm not really buying that line. Solo counters main tanks as a concept for Zen. Like, if the Discord orb wasn't on your main tank, it would be on someone else. Like,
of that, if the enemy hog
you could be saying your main tank counters Discord orb by being able to drag the Discord orb behind cover and just sit on it so Zen can't put it somewhere else.
is going uncontested, one of the best things you can do is use your own hog to punish his positioning and, most importantly, cancel take a breather. So those are the two characters you're going to want to look to really
Canceling Take a Breather isn't that big a deal. You can go, hey, there's Hog. Like, Take a Breather is annoying, and most people, it's weird. Most people are like, oh yeah, Fortify, I'm not supposed to shoot at Fortify, I'm supposed to swap towards the next hero. But they see Take a Breather, and they act like it's way less damage reduction, and they need to keep shooting at Hog. And it's just like, hey, guys, that's still a huge amount of damage reduction. Yeah, Hog doesn't have armor, but like, for some reason, people are much more interested in shooting at Hogs that are taking a breather, and then being stuck reloading when Take a Breather is over, rather than swapping off to the next squishy target that's there. Like, he's soaking, and he's soaking very effectively when Breather is going on.
really soar through the ranks, I think, in Season 32. Now up to the next tier, the A tier.
A tier. Okay. So if we look at this, he's going to give us some information on them. We see them. Is there anything here that absolutely I just go, what are you talking about? And the answer is really no. I think she's being a little overrated and probably needs to go down a tier. I'm fine with this. I'm fine with this. I'm fine with this. I'm fine with this. And this is in ladder and organized play. I'm fine with both of these. On ladder, I'm fine with this. I'd probably downgrade Anna a tiny bit in organized play. This is where she belongs. This is a good tier, guys. This is a good tier. We've overrated Mercy here for ladder, but overall, this is a pretty good tier right here. I disagree with our previous tier because I can't tell what we're tiering based off of, but if we're tiering based off of power right now, this is a reasonable tier. Brig should be a B? Why? Why do you think Brig should be a B? I mean, Brig pairs so well with everyone that gets used right now. Like, if we're going by pick rates, Brig pairs well with Zen, Brig pairs well with Anna, Brig pairs well with Bap. Like, Brig pairs well with everything. She might have less direct control over the game than some of her flex supports, but she's useful in everything. I don't think she should be B tier. It sort of depends again. Is our tier list going off of pick rate, reasonable pick rate effectively, or is our tier list going off of how much influence that individual player is going to have on that hero? Oh, no Tracer up here. You're right. No Tracer in A or S. This is a throw. This is a throw right here. You're right. Not having Tracer up here. The things that I see here don't particularly bother me, but this is missing some things. Yeah. So I'd have said this needs to go down. This probably goes down a little bit. The rest of this I'm pretty okay with, but if we're going for, like, they're based on pick rates, if we're going on their influence rates, I probably move them around a little bit. I probably move some of these around a little bit if we're going for their, like, raw power, but they're not going to move more than one tier in either direction, the things I see here. But yes, the fact that we're missing Tracer at this point is ridiculous. The fact that we're missing Sombra, yes, I am going to say it. She's worse on ladder, but it depends. We could probably move her down one tier, one single tier. But again, we're missing some DPS here. And the fact that we've done no DPS in our first two tiers, I'm not agreeing with that. I'm really not. Tracer has plenty of influence on this game right now. Sombra has influence, I know, more so in organized play. Echo, Ashe, Hanzo, they have influence. You get more map specific, but Symmetra has quite a bit of influence. I'm raising an eyebrow, you're right, now that you point out the lack of Tracer.
We're going to call these characters the most reliable, where they do the job you expect of them, and also, I would say, interact pretty well with the top picks.
No. Zen and Anna do not interact terribly well with each other, especially not in GM. Zen and Anna is a throw, guys. Like, you can get away with it in some places, but, like, in a game that has Tracer in it, that has Sombra in it, that has Winston and Wrecking Ball in it, like, no, please do not run Zen Anna. Yes, there's times where you can greed a Zen Anna. Zen Anna used to be the greedy pick when you had a peel advantage, when you knew your opponents didn't have dive heroes because you got to pick second, because say you were on attack, things like that, or you were on defense, but you had a huge terrain advantage because you were on defense. It was sort of the greedy pick to break down Brawl. Now the greedy pick is Zen Bap, and that's fine. Zen Bap is a better greedy pick. The self peel is a little bit better. But no, don't run Zen Anna together.
My major tip going up against Roadhogs is Ana players, you gotta hold your cooldowns until the end of the engagement as a finishing move to interrupt Take a Breather. A ranged
You can switch past Take a Breather, guys. It's not that big a deal. Like, yes, Hog is annoying. Hog is annoying because, like, hey, he throws at that hook, and then you're like, hey, he could get an elimination on that hook, but if you position well, he won't. He can't just afford to sit on his hook, so you end up in a situation where he has to go fishing with his hook, and he's not going to take like 20% chance to hit the hook opportunities, but he can't just hold his hook until he has a 90% chance, 80% chance of hitting it either. Like, he does have to go fishing with his hook, or he just loses and he's not a valuable enough character. So that needs to happen, and then you dive, and you don't actually dive him, or you brawl, or you whatever. You force the mid-fight while that hook is off cooldown. And you can force the mid-fight, but you go and you force the mid-fight not on the big beefy Hog, but on someone else. Or you can force the mid-fight on him while he pops Breather if you want, but I wouldn't really do it. I'd go, oh hey, let's go fight a squishy. Or if you do get breather, because it's ladder, it's your team, whatever, you see breather and you go, I do not expect us to force our way through breather. Let's swap over to the next target. Now, obviously, if he gets slept out of it, sure. If he gets antied, maybe. If he's discorded, maybe. But like, you can switch past breather the same way that you should be switching past, oh, I don't know, fortify. Like, the same way that you would switch past a Reaper that went into Wraith form, or a Mei that went into Ice Block. Like, MMO players from arenas and things like that know this. Defensive cooldowns are a thing in video games, and you just go, yes, I force the defensive cooldown, I switch past, I deal with this threat either by forcing its defensive cooldown or eliminating it, and then I've held in my brain as a flag that Hog doesn't have breather anymore, so I swap back and finish him off. And does that mean that he might get a second hook opportunity? Yeah, it does, and that sucks, don't get me wrong. But that's how you fight him. That's how the hero works. What if he hooks and then vapes? Okay, great. So he hooks and then vapes. So now he's got nothing and he's worthless, and you fight someone else while he's vaped, and then you swap back to him and you take him out as your third elimination on the other team, your second elimination on the other team. And maybe his hook comes right back up at that point, but your D.Va can pretty easily answer that second hook because you're all right there. Or a boop or a bash, your Brig can bash him, your Lucio can boop him, your Reinhardt can get in the way of it, there's lots of tools to interrupt it when you're actually all fighting on top of him there and it's his second hook coming out like that.
Sleep Dart can be amazing for that, but if you use Sleep or Nade too early, then the enemy kind of just shrugs it off and your cooldown's out, and then Ana's exploitable. Ana is incredibly exploitable in this meta, I'd say, but she's also got a lot of big plays to make when there's not a lot of shielding usually.
I mean, sure, you can run a lot of Ana if people are running a lot of Hog, and people are running a lot of Hogs, so run your Ana.
And
but
has a big role in
I would still run her with good heroes, which really means Winston.
Those Roadhogs. But it's all about timing and holding your position confidently and not wasting those cooldowns. I would say map and
no, you can still use your cooldowns opportunistically. You can. I know, it's weird, but you can do it. Hog does not have to be your first elimination. Like, just like Orisa with Fortify shouldn't need to be your first elimination. Or like, oh, the other team has a Mei who has Ice Block. We need to eliminate her first. No, you don't plan to eliminate her first. She's going to Ice Block. You can force her Ice Block first, but you don't plan to eliminate her first.
And matchup depending, Brig, Batiste, and Mercy are going to be really good.
I know everyone wants Hog eliminated, but it's a psychological thing that's going on there. We have a super chat coming in from Adam in Charge for $1.99 saying, hello, coach. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that $1.99 super chat.
At supplementing
saying,
the
hello,
rest of
coach.
the meta. Due to the range damage decrease, a lot of the flying characters are coming back. Pharah looks like a decent pick, so that gives Mercy a friend. Also, because...
Wait, so Mercy is being propelled into A tier by Pharah coming back, but Pharah's not in A tier? Is Mercy that strong without Pharah? Tell me more about this, your Overwatch.
Range damage is reduced. Having that Mercy advantage on your range character can make a significant breakpoint differential while she can damage boost them. And as well, with a lot of flankiness and repositioning going on due to the Roadhog kind of playstyle, being able to reposition as Mercy to res is incredibly powerful. Once those cooldowns are down,
I mean, Mercy is better in poke metas, sure.
those threats are out and they use it to confirm a kill, getting a res back is like a huge tempo swing. And Brig and Bap, of course, are really good at protecting Zen.
Brig is really good at protecting Zen. Bap can work pretty well with Zen. But I thought we needed Ana in every game because there was a Roadhog in every game. And we're not running Ana Zen together. So, and if you are running Ana Zen together, everyone is switching past your Roadhog and deleting your Ana and Zen, and you do not have the tools to protect them because you're running a Roadhog, not a D.Va or a Zarya or a Sigma to protect them, and you're running Ana Zen, who are not a Brig or a Lucio or someone who could adequately protect them. So, great. We shoot Hog, Hog pops breather, or we weather Hog's first hook, great. And then as soon as we've weathered Hog's first hook attempt, we delete both of your supports, and oh, now your Hog gets a free second hook opportunity on us, but we don't actually care because we're all right here, and maybe we have our D.Va, our Sigma, our Wrecking Ball, our Brig, our Ana, our Lamp, our, whatever we want to interrupt it. Like, this, no, guys. Do better. As time goes on, people will figure this out.
Although at most ranks, players are terrified at
Maybe I need to do a video specifically on how to counter Hog.
the low healing amount from Brig and Zenyatta put together, but just note that if you have an elite tier Brig, interrupting those plays, like against the Roadhog, for example, Brig has options.
What rank are we watching? I don't know. It says this character is nice. I don't know if this is one of Frito's alt accounts or not.
Similar to Ana to disable him, but as well, holding that position will really fortify that medium range of the game. Brig's weak to the longest range characters, but there actually isn't that many of them. So the game is a lot closer to her, and when there's not...
But that's because the game is actually... I mean, I'd say the game is more close range than medium range in organized play right now, but, you know, the strongest metas for the last year and a half have been Poke Dive and Poke Brawl. Like, Double Shield is not weak by any means, but those have mostly been the strongest metas, and those do incorporate some mid-range elements to them, but they are primarily short-range elements.
Shields to interrupt her flail,
Or
getting
factors.
that Inspire up
I know
is
some
going to do
people
a
prefer
lot,
that
but also as
terminology.
well a very durable backline. The other tanks in the A tier most reliable
S tier is actually a troll? Yeah, a little bit.
category, I would
I mean, I can live with Zen being there if we're going from a power perspective. I'm struggling with Zen there from a pick rate perspective.
also say you want to mix around depending on what you
I'm thinking about it, Blah. It's hard for me not to review some of this gameplay.
want to target on the
Is
enemy
Ana
team.
that's just
Sigma
jump
or
spamming, for
Orisa
example,
that
without
can pair
quick
well with
scoping
Roadhog
from
because they
it?
can play similar positions, poke back at the enemy, and have their own plays to make without having to engage in. That positions poke on the enemy team.
Sorry, I got
you
distracted
wanna
watching
mix
gameplay.
around depending on what you want to target on the enemy team. Sigma or Orisa can pick other tanks in the A tier most reliable category. I would also say you want to mix around depending on what you want to target on the enemy team. Sigma or Orisa can pair well with Roadhog because they can play similar positions.
Similar positions, you mean they pair well because they take different positions than Roadhog, right? Surely you're not stacking your Sigma on your Roadhog.
Poke back at the enemy and have their own plays to make without having to engage in. That's
And Sigma doesn't really like fighting Roadhog, to be perfectly
a
honest.
key thing. It can be very tricky to play any engage type tank right now due to either getting chain stunned or discorded. You might say, well,
That's always been the case. And stuns are not as bad as they've been at other points in this game.
that would make Wrecking
And honestly, damage is not as high as it's been at other points in this game either. So, yeah, I don't buy that. I agree if people are mostly playing poke heroes, yes, it becomes more awkward to play brawl heroes, but that makes dive heroes better. The problem is ladder doesn't play dive terribly well, and it never has played dive terribly well. So when poke is moderately strong, and poke is moderately strong, I don't think it's the strongest, but when it's moderately strong, it does well, and it does better on ladder than it does in organized play, when it's not actually the strongest, but is strong.
Ball pretty hard, but Ball is good mostly because of the positions he can play. Don't be too overly eager to pile drive in every time and expecting Adaptive Shield to save you, but instead, playing the deathmatch game and spreading the enemy out will make openings for your Roadhog.
Sure, but that's always how Wrecking Ball is played with poke heroes. So you're playing a pokey meta, you spend your Wrecking Ball to separate stuff, to knock people away, so that your Ashe can get pickoffs, so that your Pharah can hit a shot, so that you can then follow up. Like, Wrecking Ball's been happy to play in poke metas.
Which you'll especially notice if you're going up against
That's part of why we see more Wrecking Ball than Winston, in fact. It's not all of it, but it's part of it where, hey, the game has moved more towards hybrid comps, like Poke Dive Hybrid, and Wrecking Ball is quite a bit better at enabling Poke than Winston is. Remember, before Orisa was in the game, Winston was the tank that you used in Poke comps, the main tank. But then Orisa got added, and Orisa became sometimes the main tank you use. Sometimes you still used Winston. He gives you a little more ability to contest cart, delay cart, that sort of thing than Orisa does without all-inning, which could give your Poke time more team against a brawl comp. Then we got Wrecking Ball, and Wrecking Ball dives hard like Winston, but does a much better job of enabling poke with pile drives, with knocking people away from shields, knocking people out of cover, all that stuff.
double shield, for example, or like Ryan Zarya, disrupting those squishies and really just breaking them apart, shooting them from the side, you're going to have a lot of success. The game right now is really about those cover positions and medium range poke angles. Establish in that kind of position and shoot the Discord orb, you're going to have a really good time. Now onto the B.
What? This is like the definition of I don't know where to put DPS heroes, and I don't want to think about it, and I don't think they're having any influence on the game. Like, really? You have Tracer in the same tier as Genji and Zarya? What? So I thought we were talking more about the upper end of the ladder. I did. Based on what I was getting here, I'm still not totally sure whether we're talking about pick rates or we're talking about strength of the heroes. You know, I'm trying to be generous in my interpretations here to make him more right. Because, you know, that's what you want to do here if he hasn't given us the details himself, and he hasn't. We didn't skip the parts of the video or anything. And I can tell that we're playing more in upper parts of the ladder with our tier list, so we're more looking at GM, Masters, Diamond type stuff than we are the mid-ranks of the ladder where most of the players are, and we're completely ignoring the bottom part of the ladder. At least I thought we were until I saw Zarya here. No. You can't put Tracer in the same tier as Zarya and Genji. You can't do it. Like, no. It just doesn't work. Like, if we're in this, oh, poke heroes are good, poke is powerful, whatever, if we're in that, Tracer is by definition good because Tracer comes out and either eliminates them or forces them to give up angles and run back to their team, either of which is very good. And this isn't hard. Yes, this happens in organized play, but this isn't hard to have happen on ladder either. Individual Tracer heroes can do this with zero coordination with their team and get a lot of value for their team just by forcing the Hanzo back to his team, just by forcing the soldier back to his team, just by forcing the Ash back to her team, just by, you know, making the Sigma leave eventually. Like, all these things, that's very good value. That's quite powerful. It's better than having a second poke DPS in a lot of situations. So no, you can't have it. You can't have it. And then Genji can do much the same thing as Tracer. Genji's not the worst thing in the world. If people are overstacking, Genji gets a little bit more benefit. If people are playing their bunker as a single bunker, Genji can, you know, do the, I can chase one person back pretty easily, but also I can hit massive dashes through a single bunker. Though I would really say Doomfist just does that job better, and you should use Doomfist if you're using it for that case. But I know we see Genji get used for this, and Genji does have more ability to sort of hybridize between I can herd people back to the single bunker, and then I can hit the bunker hard. Whereas Doomfist really can't herd people back. He just hits the single bunker hard. Tracer is much better at herding people back, but her only way to hit the bunker hard is with the pulse bomb. I still think she is the best hero for this, and this is the next best hero for this, not Genji, but people have been using Genji, so I sort of get that, but like, we cannot put Tracer in the same tier as these. We can't do it. Genji's not flexible enough, not good enough at that. Zarya, I guess is here for your Winston, but like, no. Zarya does not get to be as good as Tracer. No. Absolutely not. So we're actually trying to say that every tank except Winston, Zarya, and Reinhardt is better than Tracer in this meta. That's just not true. Like, it's just ridiculously not even true. And then we look at this and we're saying all four of these heroes have basically the same value. Oh, excuse me. All five of our hit scan heroes have the same value. All five of our ranged hit scan. Sorry, Hanzo's not a ranged hit scan, but fills a very similar role. And let's do this. This is a pretty similar role as well, as is this. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? These are not all the same. This is literally like, no, I just give up. I'm just gonna, okay. And his explanation for this is these are matchup and map specific. No, they're not. Tracer is not a map specific hero, guys. And Tracer does great in poke metas. Tracer actually is at her worst in brawl metas. Tracer does great in poke metas. Oh, this hurts. I'm gonna complain.
Tier where
okay, let's
this
see
is
it.
where you'll find like almost all the DPS, right? Because I think DPS are quite balanced and there's a lot of options.
DPS are balanced? I mean, really? Really? Doomfist is balanced when Cassidy can aerial roll? Doomfist was hurting even before Cassidy could aerial roll. Now, in this ladder-based poke meta that you're selling, Doomfist is a little bit better if there's a lot of double shield going on, but he's not particularly great with a bunch of hog running around. He's really better when it's actually double shield. No.
And a lot of them do what you expect them to do, but they're all counterable by...
So, Roadhog was counterable by Ana, but you put him in S tier. What are you talking about?
a tank or support, particularly from...
Do you just not like it when DPS just can't 100% take over the game? Is that your complaint here, Frito? So you think they're all... DPS can't take over the game without any ability, without getting help from, you know, their supports, their tanks. They can be controlled in some way by tanks or supports, so they're all garbage? Like, what is going on here?
Our S tier picks, where Zen's going to be out damaging you, and it's really tough to deal with a Roadhog. Although you can like fully commit to try to use a Mei or a Reaper onto the Hog, he still has plays to make, and you're going to be...
Reaper's pretty good into Hog, guys. Reaper's pretty good into Hog.
Lacking so much at the medium range damage just by picking those characters, you might feel like it's an over investment. That's kind
But I agree, in the stuff that gets picked right now, Reaper isn't amazing into the rest of what you're going to see.
of the Hog meta principle right now, where you can go at him and overcommit to kill him, but it might be too expensive and...
Oh, is it too expensive to overcommit on Hog? So maybe you shouldn't even bother, and you should just weather that first hook with good positioning, with a good surround, and then commit on them? What is Rhino doing on flex passes? And then commit on them once they what am I saying? Once they, you know, on people who aren't Hog? Like, this whole thing is being driven by Roadhog, and he's just not that big a deal. Yes, I know he's getting played a lot on ladder.
show weaknesses in your comp in the rest of the game. I put Tracer...
Is Samito's tier list good this time? I didn't feel like reacting to Samito's tier list this time. I did Frito's instead because we did Samito's last time. I did link the last tier list from Samito that we reacted to.
as number 1 in the DPS category because she's good at fighting against a Zen, but Tracer as...
Okay, so we are actually putting them in order in their category. Okay.
as number 1 in the DPS category.
That's a little better.
Because she's good at fighting against a Zen, but also pairs amazing with one. And I'd say the second...
Right. And that's why she's actually S tier, or top of A tier at the very least, because she pairs well with Zen. She fights Zen well. She pairs well with Ball. She fights Ball well. Like some of these characters that she works well with, like, this is how it works. Like, and you guys have seen this if you've seen my duo and trio video of like what makes a good duo, what makes a good trio. One of the best things to run right now is 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 3 of the heroes of Tracer, Zen, and Hammond. Like, oh, if you can run all 3 of those, that's quite a good 3-stack, because you can hard abuse synergies. But okay. And if that's the case, Tracer's a pretty good hero.
most popular combo is Mercy and Ana, and against them, I think you almost have to pick Tracer in order to start pressuring out that Mercy, unless you're playing a sniper yourself.
Why do we have to pick Tracer to pressure out Mercy? Are we pretending that there aren't lots of other heroes that can do that?
Have to pick Tracer in order to start pressuring out that Mercy, unless you're playing a sniper yourself.
You're way overvaluing Mercy. Tracer is better than Mercy right now. Full stop. I'm not even interested in arguments otherwise.
Tracer can really force the enemy team to feel like they have to pick Brig, which then puts them at a bit of a poke disadvantage.
Oh, so she's meta shaping? Huh. Maybe she shouldn't be in B tier if she's meta shaping.
That's kind of how the meta plays out from my experience. A lot of these medium range characters, I really go back and forth on.
And, you know, she's the reason that, hey, you can't, or she's part of the reason you can't actually run Zen Ana as a combination, even though you think they're both very good heroes. Huh, seems kind of meta shaping.
Previous tier list from a year ago, I had dropped Cassidy quite a bit, and I think that's the first time I remember to say his name correctly now, so kudos to me. It took like a year, but I think
it hasn't been a year.
Cassidy is like super overrated, but at the same time, stun and having extra health is so darn good.
Cassidy was a bit overrated before aerial roll. He was fine. He wasn't terrible or anything. He could have used a very minor buff. The hit scan fall off did hurt him. I don't think aerial roll was a good buff to give him. I would have liked to look at something else. I actually probably would have just toned back in the hit scan nerf in general a little bit. Not even close to all the way, but a little bit, because he had fallen off a little bit, but I was actually okay with him being a little out of the meta. But I actually think Ashe had been hurt too much by the general hit scan nerf, and that was the more important piece. But that's fine.
That it really like just makes everyone feel like they're in a security blanket when playing with one. Because it's such an easy stun to hit and makes other abilities easy to hit, whether it's his damage or just another teammate following up.
I mean, yeah, he does help, like, make dive less scary, but he's not good enough right now for dive to be forced out of the meta. Ladder just isn't very good at dive. But Ladder is reasonably good at Tracer. There's plenty, and I mean plenty, of good Tracer players on Ladder. So we should be getting enough elements to not let Poke run wild.
Up on it. But I feel like when I'm playing up against the Cassidy, as long as I'm on one of the range support characters or a further range DPS, he doesn't feel like much of a threat most of the time. So I could just as easily put him almost anywhere in like the top 8 of this category, depending on the matchup.
Or we could move him down to C tier, to be perfectly honest, and we probably should.
But I think he's just
with the aerial role, maybe not, but I still need to get a better feel for that.
Easy to play around, so I keep him here. Just keep in mind that each map, you're going to have to think a lot more carefully about your ranged effectiveness. I have Ashe quite high on here, but there's some maps where the engagement distances are too far, and she's going to feel useless. However, I think she has a really flexible playstyle against a lot of things.
Flexible playstyle against a lot of things, okay.
Whether it's out...
Ashe is somewhat flexible. I don't think she's powerful enough to be here, quite honestly. I find that even before the Hanzo buff, Hanzo made more sense than her in a lot of situations. Most situations, in fact, I'd have said. Really, she did not handle the hit scan nerf well. I think she took it the worst of them, and now that Hanzo has been further buffed with bouncing storm arrows, no, she for sure should be lower in this tier than Hanzo, if she's going to be here. And again, she shouldn't be in the same tier as Tracer. Tracer is so much better.
Ranging McCree, shooting flyers out of the sky, and just farming up tanks. Ashe is going to feel very flexible, and like she doesn't have any major weaknesses other than the snipers, but I think snipers are a little bit hard to play because they're a bit more one-dimensional than they've been in the past.
Hanzo, one-dimensional? Excuse me? I'm going to have to hear more about one-dimensional Hanzo, but you're going into Hanzo next, so let's hear it.
Because the game is so poke-heavy, and there's a lack of shielding and defensives, usually
I can tell you my Widow player is kicking butt in scrims right now. Now, you know, again, that's scrims, that's organized play, but like, no.
Usually when there's a Roadhog on the
that said, I'm way more interested in his Hanzo defense for Hanzo struggling.
Field, I do keep Widow in the mix, mainly because I think shielding and defensives usually past. Because the game is so poke heavy and there's a lack of shielding and defensives usually when there's a Roadhog on the field, I do keep Widow in the mix, mainly because I think a good
we skipped this far to Widow, okay.
thing to think about from the damage point of view is like, I think it's a more pick-oriented playstyle than before. And what I mean is, when there's not a ton of ranged poke coming from their class, it's instead coming from your Zen, well, you kind of want to play safer and just go for your duels on DPS, which promotes Widow's playstyle.
What? No. And again, Tracer exists. Tracer exists. 175 health Widow struggles whenever Tracer exists, and nothing has forced Tracer out of the meta. And a weaker Cassidy has let Tracer have more fun in the meta, so no.
Duels and ultimates, I think, is kind of like the easy way to think about DPS. Like, you want to pressure as much as you can, but it's very difficult to pressure a Roadhog who has
I hope we get a full visual of the whole tier list at the end here.
Off his face and take a breather, and he's constantly getting healed. It's like, if you try to pressure tanks too long, I think you're going to feel like you're going to quickly get punished and feel like you almost don't even need to that much. Like, your most important thing is to follow up on that Discord orb. Do that, and I think you're going to have an easier time on DPS. If
following the Discord is going to give you an easy time on DPS. It's going to give you an easy time on tank. I highly recommend people follow Discord Orb in general. It's a skill I don't go over a ton in VOD reviews because I'm generally VOD reviewing a single player type thing, and there's not always a Zen in their game, and that's not like the most helpful thing because there's not always a Zen in their game, but it is a skill that people should generally have. The Discord Orb is a huge deal.
If they are foolish enough to play a main
Now, obviously, don't feed to get to the Discord orb, but hey.
Main tank, which you barely see on this list anywhere, right? Then yeah, you get to help shoot the main tank with the Zen. But that's such a easy thing to counter. I don't think that's like something you have to focus on necessarily. I don't think people struggle to do that. Otherwise, in this category as well, you'll see Winston and Zarya.
We've just totally skipped Hanzo? Really? We're not going to talk about Hanzo. We're not going to talk about a DPS that's been good ever since its rework. Hasn't been hard meta, really, other than that first Grav Dragon patch, but has never fallen out of the top 5 DPS and just got buffed, and we're not going to talk about him. We instead talked about Widow. We're skipping past Reaper, we're skipping past Echo, Pharah. You talked a tiny bit about Pharah back when we were in A tier, because somehow that justified Mercy. Doomfist, like, no. You need to explain why Doomfist is here, and I can understand an argument for Doomfist. Still doesn't make sense in the same tier as Tracer, but like I can sort of understand it if you're like, hey, no, this is all super poke heavy, but again, not really, because you're saying it's Roadhog all the time, and there is a lot of Roadhog, and Doomfist should not be this high. So like, you're gonna have to give me more than this to defend these placements. Hanzo is better than Ashe and better than Cassidy right now. I don't know that I'd pick him as number 2 DPS in organized play or in ladder play, but I might in ladder play. I might pick him as the number 2 DPS in ladder play right now. I definitely, yeah, he's in the more flexible spot, but I might pick him as the number 2 DPS. He's ahead of both Hanzo and Cassidy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've gone lower and lower on Zarya as time has gone on, mainly because there isn't as much of a frontline battle to be had, and it can be difficult for Zarya to get in on the characters she needs.
Well, I mean, okay, but if people are running super heavy bunkers and brigs and Zen Annas and things like that, I mean, yeah, Winston doesn't like the Roadhog in play, don't get me wrong. But he's pretty happy if he can have an Anna, because apparently, you know, we've said that there's an Anna in every game, but somehow she's not S tier because Zen is actually in every game. Wait, what are we doing? Whatever. Winston can engage on these bunkers pretty hard with Zarya. And again, I think this list is tilted towards the upper ranks, the non-metal ranks, the precious, or not the, what do I want to say? The non-metal ranks. Like, I think this tier list is tilted towards those, and this synergy is pretty easy to hit at those levels. There's still, you know, tanks that are really Winston specialists. There are 4,500 players that can make this stuff work, and there's also plenty of normals. Like, it's not that hard to make the synergy work to blow up, a Cassidy, we don't care. A Brig, we don't care, and these things are going to be stacking together based on what we're hearing. If you have Cassidy, Anna, Bap, those guys are going to be pretty stacked together in this rec set. But, okay, let's see what's going on here. That said, Zarya does not belong up here. Zarya does not belong up here. The only thing that she's got going for her is the ability to pair with Winston. Should be up here.
To fight in order to really have effective damage. It's hard to go in general anyway, so bubbling something in doesn't really get you the value
we'll
you
talk
expect.
About Winston.
You're going to expect some surprise off angles, which I think you'll just have a better time punishing with Sigma's shield and damage or Diva repositioning with Fly. Both of them are higher up in the A tier. And Winston as a character needs to go in badly, but you just know you're going to get Discord.
Right, which is why they have to pair.
And
No, it's not the Discord. The Discord you can deal with. It sucks, but you can deal with it. It is very much the Brig.
I just feel like there's way more things you have to outplay as Winston that it'll just feel easier to pick Hog. And
it's easier to pick Hog, except that you have a lot of heroes in play right now that stack together for you because they play poke stuff wrong on ladder that you just wipe out. It's the reason that organized play was perfectly happy to throw double bubble comps at poke comps, was perfectly happy to throw 6-man comps at poke comps. Like, ugh, okay, I'll deal.
Not go in, or any other poke character. You want to be really wary right now about playing.
At the top of the ladder, no, but Moira's seeing a lot more play throughout the ladder, so I'm not questioning it too hard. Again, I don't have a good enough feel for exactly where we're aiming this on the ladder. She's seeing a lot of play, especially at the beginning, because people wanted to test her out, and she does have, at the lower end of the ladder, she's got quite a bit of ability to help, because she can follow more, she can do more, she, you know, doesn't struggle, like, Baps need to weave to outvalue her, and to outvalue her survivability, that sort of thing. And they do at higher levels, but I'm assuming she's there for lower ranks. But again, our list is getting messy now. Our list has been messy really since S tier, but
characters that need to go in to get value, because you just sort of absorb a lot of the easy to hit cooldowns in the game and not get a lot out of it. Like, it's not good enough to just tank in this meta.
No, but Winston's not about tanking. Winston is about getting massive amounts of cleave damage done to preferably squishies.
don't think. I think you just die and lose your ability to contribute. Which brings us to our bottom tier in C, Situational.
Oh, C is going to be our bottom tier right now? We put Sombra in the bottom tier? No. Like, I know, ladder, not organized play. Ladder, not organized play. Fine. But I'm still gonna say no. She can still bully poke DPS reasonably well. She can, even in organized play, tell people where things are. Like, scouting is very good for poke comps. Being able to harass outside poke DPS to make them shoot back is very good. Being able to hack Roadhog is pretty good. In comps, if you're seeing a lot of double off tank like Roadhog plus Diva, Roadhog plus Sigma, her hacks are reasonably easy to get off. Sigma does a better job of interrupting her, but her hacks are reasonably easy to get off. No. I'm gonna object to this one. I'm gonna object to putting her down here with Reinhardt and Bastion. But okay.
Situational, Reinhardt fell all the way here. We haven't spoken about the patch yet because the patch wasn't that impactful in my opinion, but we will talk about Rein's buff in a moment. I just think it doesn't end up affecting his current power level.
And I'd say there are maps like this one where you do still bring him out and you want to bring him out. Like, he is a situational pick, but you do want to bring him and Sim out here, for example.
Because again, going in sucks.
Even on ladder.
If you go in to try to use the new shatter buff, it'll do what is intended. It's just I don't know what you do after that when a lot of characters are taking ranged angles on you. I think Ryan's going to need some of those Overwatch 2 buffs to come in quick or go back to that extra 50 armor he used to have, or maybe a Discord nerf. Any of these things
I don't think we're getting another Discord nerf.
This would be good for me to feel like he does his job at all. So I don't put any of these in the avoid category necessarily.
Oh, this isn't avoid. There's still a worse one.
Because I think on the right map, they definitely can get some value.
Sure.
It's just most of the time as a Reinhardt, you wish you could be shooting back as any of the characters that can shoot.
Okay, but shooting has never been Reinhardt's solution. Reinhardt's solution has been, let me herd my enemies in such a way, let me rotate to the outside so that they're always facing towards, so that they're all facing towards me, let me take away their angles. And, you know, maybe you need a faster movement while shielding for that. Maybe you need more barrier health for that. I'm really not convinced that we need the ability to poke back harder, but I guess we're going to hear about double fire strike for Overwatch 2. Yay.
And because Rein is built to need to go in and swing and deal damage now, that's his playstyle, you're just putting yourself at risk for easy focus fire and chain stuns. You can, of course, as always, punish corners and really drain the clock and make the fight take a bit longer with his superior shields. There's just enough poke in the game that your shield's going to go down if the enemy just...
This is not the highest level of pokes we've had in the game or even close to it. Like, no.
Gets good angles on you.
Poke isn't actually all that powerful. We had the hit scan nerf. Poke has been softened, guys.
And keep shooting. Like, it'll slow down the game for sure, but that's not really what Rein needs to be doing in order to succeed nowadays. Lucio, Sombra, and Bastion, I'm going to put in situational tier. If you're a specialist on one of these characters and know how to maximize them, or are playing in a coordinated team a bit more in order to get use out of speed amp and EMP, or are good at protecting your Bastion, there's some value to be had, but I think coordination and moving together is kind of what Overwatch is moving away from. And so far, at least.
I mean, it's angles and timing, but there's still coordination to timing. You just might individually be able to do it. You don't care what your team is saying. You're just watching them, and when they're ready to move, you move. That sort of thing. So, like, that's timing, but you are independent in the sense that you're on your own angle. And yes, Overwatch has been moving in that direction for a while, rather than let's stack and rotate together stuff. There are still times to stack and rotate together. Reinhardt is very good for those times. You have to do rotations to retake space against a team that you've lost to frequently, but yeah.
So what we know about Overwatch 2, that looks to be a similar trend. Like, it's already happening in Overwatch 1. We're playing around cover in a pretty strict shootery way. These characters that want to go in together or huddle up too much can be challenging to play in solo.
But, like, we had a brawl meta a year ago, man, and it was fine. Yes, we took more angles than we have in previous brawl metas, but That's just fine. You can do that. That's still a perfectly reasonable way to play the game.
Q. Now, we
Okay.
didn't speak about the patch at all, but
Okay,
we'll
let's
quickly
talk about
run
the
through
patch.
it just so that you guys know what
much
the
time do we have
changes
left on this?
are.
Oh, quite
they
a
don't
bit.
affect the power level too significantly, but just so you're aware, Moira Fade now can jump much higher when using the ability, which means you can launch
That's
yourself
helped.
in air and get up to spots that you
It even helped a little bit more than I thought it would, but it is not game-changing.
couldn't before. I think this is a good change and has made some players be more optimistic about the character. I think Moira's got a lot of potential, actually, and it's
She still needs utility.
odd how our community perceives some of the support picks. Like, they're totally fine if you pick Ana and die repeatedly to a Doomfist, but if you swap to Moira to survive forever and use her strengths, it's like they think she's just a throw pick. But
It's because she is. Sorry. Like, don't get me wrong, there's good Moira players, but the reality is, no, she is, in most situations, not going to get you the value that an Ana or a Bap are going to get you. Like, oh yes, I'm putting out healing. Great, you're putting out healing. Bap and Ana put out as much healing, except Bap puts out as much damage, well, as much damage as he does healing or more, and Moira doesn't come anywhere close to that. Oh, but I've got survivability. Okay, position better on Bap. Like, if you find your Moira is getting really, really aggressive and is able to do the good healing while doing that, yeah, you can make her good. There's things that you can do, but most of the people don't want to see that out of their Moira until they know their Moira has figured out the appropriate healing levels, the appropriate supporting to be doing, and once that's done sort of an evolved standpoint, you can't actually do it in that order, but that's what people want to see out of their Moiras, whereas Bap can do the healing and then ease into the DPS, and it's like pretty easy, and Bap's survivability is not significantly lower than Moira's. Yeah, a little more vulnerable to Doomfists and the like, but having Lamp, having the ability to play from further away, having the ability to heal with the shift there, 150 HP, makes tracers and such outright frustrated when they show up. Like, yeah, that matters. And that's why he's a fundamentally better hero, as well as being able to heal people in different places, which Moira can't do without either wasting her orb or wasting her fade.
But I don't think she's insanely strong, but I do think she does the job that she's intended to do, which
She does do the job that she's intended to do, it's just not a powerful enough niche.
is be very flexible in the backline to either parry away
No, flexibility is not her job. Survivable is her job. And she does that, but
from dive threats or
it's not good enough.
dive in her own right. That's going to be the big mental shift you'll have with Moira, is realize her biggest strength is as a dive DPS
Moira counters Doomfist. I mean, Moira doesn't lose to Doomfist. I don't know that I'd say Moira counters Doomfist.
type character. Like, going in and cleaving past defenses with an orb and her ultimate makes a lot of characters just fall over. Like,
Sure, no, she's great for that. Her ult is fantastic.
Brig and Sigma, Moira can cleave through their shields with orb and coalescence, especially
Probably not like that with her ult, but, you know.
in with a Winston, and that focus fire can shred a lot of things. This new Fade, I think, will help you go aggressively at some DPS picks, especially at the average level
maybe
of
don't
play.
heal the
I think,
enemy
like
McCree.
a Widowmaker is going to struggle to headshot you, ADing as you fade in and jump on her, using a fade jump to get to the high ground. Reinhardt's change was to Earth Shatter, dealing an extra 200 damage within
Sure, why not?
1.75 meters of the impact area. That's a holdover from Flat's buff from the experimental card,
Yeah,
and I think a pretty good one. I mean,
I don't, but okay.
in a lot of characters,
It's a meme.
there's a lot of instances where you will one-shot all squishies, but also don't discount being able to use this on a character like Roadhog, for example, where Earth Shattering his Take a Breather will cancel it and give you a burst of damage.
Yeah, like it has some value, and then some of the Zarya bubble shenanigans where it's like, oh, count as two separate hits until we get that fixed have value, but like still, yeah,
I think
it's a
Ryan's
meme.
bigger problem right now
Ryan's bigger problem is you're playing him like this. You're going left, right, like this, with your shield up, rather than picking an enemy and walking at them, or deciding, I don't have enough shield at 300, so I'm just going to leave. This is your Ryan problem right now. The gameplay is your Ryan problem. And it's like, oh, I can't walk at things. Then don't walk at them. Go back to your corner. Get enough the shield that you can walk at them. Change your angle so that you can walk at them.
though, is that everyone has kind of adapted to the medium range metagame, and the positions you'll find your enemies most
It's an additional 200 damage, so yeah, it's 200 plus his standard 50. So yes, it will one-shot the break there.
Times are out of reach. So farming up Earth Shatter feels
Mm-hmm.
very difficult, and then even when you get it, you probably are only hitting one or two things anyway. Like, it's pretty hard, except on the best maps for Ryan, to get in reliably to use this new buff. And although on paper this Earth Shatter buff looks insane, you got characters like Hog and Sigma who are rolling around one-shotting squishies all the time anyway, right? So this is the kind of buff that tries to make Ryan more like them, but at the end of the day, he's not a poke tank, and we're in a poke meta. So it doesn't make me feel higher on Reinhardt like I think the devs may have hoped. But
yeah, Reinhardt's not going to do as well in ladder as he is in organized play. That's fine.
We'll see how
Reinhardt's not in a great place for ladder
with Overwatch
right
too. I'm really curious about that. Hanzo's Storm,
and he's map specific for organized play, though you can force around a lot of that map specificity with things like Simbrawl.
arrows ricochet on impact now. Note they only bounce once. That can still be pretty deadly. I'm thinking like Volskaya A, that mini health pack, really easy to launch some storm arrows in that room and just
there's a lot more places than that.
Something off. Not a super significant buff.
It's pretty meaningful as a buff. The ability to hit someone with a body shot and then immediately follow up with Storm Arrow and potentially still bounce shots and get them even if they've retreated around the corner, it's pretty meaningful.
I find Hanzo to be pretty playable, but I would note that no DPS feels great up against the best tanks.
So according to your Overwatch, we're in a poke meta. We're in a poke meta based on Zen and Roadhog. None of the DPS have any influence on us being in a poke meta. No. Zen can have a lot of influence on us being in a poke meta. The DPS definitely have an influence on us being in a poke meta on ladder, if that's where we're going. Like, no. And who's one of the DPS who could have that influence? Well, it would be Hanzo. I mean, Hanzo, a very strong poke hero. I would argue that of the, standard mid-range poke options right now, he's the strongest, in fact. We have a super chat coming in from Ameni for $3 Australian saying, paying for the micro review of the terrible Rhine. Thank you, Ameni. Thank you. I appreciate that $3 super chat. Maybe we'll look back and look at the Rhine a little bit more there at the end. But yeah, appreciate the $3 super chat there.
So pick him for...
Rhine buff is good and Hanzo buff is not meaningful. Why am I not surprised you're Overwatch? I mean, I don't think he oversold the strength of the Rhine buff, but yeah, I think he is underselling the Hanzo buff a little bit.
Squishies off more so than expecting him to like fight off some of these Giga tanks. They just have too much health and cooldown.
You just hate tanks. You just hate tanks is what I'm hearing.
That protect them. That up against main tanks, Hanzo destroys them, but so does everything else. Next change was to Cassidy, where combat roll can be used in air, making him even more durable up against dives like Wrecking Ball's Pile Driver and especially Doomfist. I think this feels most key in that matchup so that Cassidy can fall himself exactly where he needs to be in order to land Flashbang.
I mean,
Flashbang and Fan the Hammer are like the core of Cassidy's kit to me now, because his Peacekeeper damage at range doesn't do a whole lot, actually. But he's an incredibly good teammate and feels very supportive in his playstyle and tanky. Next change was to Torbjorn, where his ammo cost was decreased from 3 to 2 on his alternate fire. A pretty unimpactful change because a lot of the time...
Oh, well, everything eliminates tanks too? Too bad? Yeah.
Alt fire on Torb is useful when, like, finishing fights, I feel. Like when you're cleaning things up, because earlier on in fights, they're usually taking place at too long of range or the tanks...
The Torb right-click buff was ultimately good because it really didn't make sense to use his right-click even against its intended targets previously, because you'd get forced into reloads because of how expensive it was, and you'd have been better off spamming left-click at them the whole time. But, that's okay. It was a reasonable buff.
Still have armor health to the point where the spread damage isn't a good call. Since most of the game is out of Torb's range anyway, he isn't one of the higher contending characters, but I think he's just got a lot of flexibility.
Torb does well in poke metas. because poke metas are vulnerable to dive. Poke metas are vulnerable to dive. Truth is, full dive comps don't care that much about Torb, where poke dive comps don't care that much about Torb. But you know what? On ladder, you can have good flanker players. You're not going to have good dives, but you're going to have good flanker players. Good flanker players do not like Torb. Torb does a good job of making flankers, if you're talking solo Tracer or solo Wrecking Ball, have quite a bit harder of a time. Now, okay, it can get a little easier for them if their teammates are dealing with turrets, things like that, because the teammates have some level of poke to them. But no, Torb is good in poke metas because Torb is one of the things that you swap to, and I would honestly argue he's a better thing to swap to than Cassidy right now, though that's somewhat debatable, to harden your poke comp against dives or solo flankers that are out there to make your life a little more difficult. And you're still going to have better poke if you go, hey, we're going to run Hanzo Torb while you guys are running Hanzo Tracer, or while you guys are running Ash Tracer, or whatever. No, you're still gonna have better poke than them, and you're a lot less vulnerable to the Tracer. Good deal. Torb Turret is the best peel you've ever gotten on ladder. There you go.
Where I still keep him at a...
You think the gameplay review would be better than the tier list review? Maybe.
Solid flex DPS pick. But the game's sort of out of his right-click range nowadays.
It was the right click was just a good fix, but he's useful because of how the game is being.
So it's kind of a negligible change.
Whatever.
Next one is to Wrecking Ball, and this is the final patch change. Grappling.
Really? We think didn't we just say Roadhog is the most fearsome force on the ladder, and I don't know, maybe Roadhog, maybe we need to clean that up in the mid fight, in the late part of the mid fight. Having better right clicks is pretty cool.
Grappling Claw now has a maximum grapple time of 6 seconds.
Fine.
This was a fairly controversial change with mixed feedback from the community from what I've seen. I would say I like it because I think...
Because you don't like tanks, and that's becoming very clear to us. You would like DPS to just rule the game.
The average level player experiences Wrecking Ball just tethering to the cart and spinning the entire time, and he's just moving so fast that a lot of players struggle to hit him.
Yeah, but they also struggle to hit a Lucio that's wall riding around the point, so...
With the disables, just because of how wacky his movement is. I think the grapple decoupling is just a healthy change.
It's taken away some pretty cool spots.
Regardless of what it does to balance. And as you can see, it's not like it puts him low on the list for me. I might be higher on him than other people, but
No, he's quite fine. He's still fine. He's still one of the better tanks. He's still... very much one of the better tanks, so it's not like it destroyed him or anything. It just feels bad, and we don't really want things to feel bad, but whatever.
I just think when you're playing around a Zen as a teammate,
I also feel we nerfed spin to win because metal ranks had trouble hitting spin to win. People aren't great at Wrecking Ball in metal ranks anyways, and metal ranks are screaming about wanting a Reinhardt all the time anyways, so maybe nerfing a hero who already has a perception of, there's a Wrecking Ball on their team, and therefore he's throwing, maybe not the best idea. Because that is mostly aimed at lower ranks. It does hurt higher ranks too, not because of spin to win, but because of their ability to hold certain positions. It's not actually, terribly big-brained balance like that. Tanks aren't allowed to have fun. Tanks do their job. Frito overtuned.
Wrecking Ball can get to health packs as to really reduce the burden of Zenyatta's healing, but also he's really quick and can go finish off kills and chase down discords. Regardless of what they changed about him,
okay, so
I think he just fits in the way.
Is this our whole list?
Way the meta's being played. He can get rolled by all the disables, but as long as he gets in and does his job to set up those he can get rolled by all the disables, but as long as he gets in and does his job to set up those range characters, or even just keep him...
Go back a second and look at the Ana? Sure.
On the list of what it does to balance. And
okay, so the other team has a ball. No, the other team has a Tracer. Okay, and his team is a Wrecking Ball.
It's not like it puts him...
So he's running from a Reinhardt. Tracer blinks behind him. Melee the Tracer. Why are we meleeing the Tracer? Did you just spent a shot?
As you can see, it's not like it puts...
Were you weaving because you'd spent a shot and you were trying to fill downtime?
For me.
No. You weren't.
To balance. And as you can see, it's not like it puts him low.
You take your shot,
list
You turn.
for me.
No. You're delaying your next shot too much. This isn't a good melee.
I might be higher on him than
And then you go for a second melee without weaving a shot? What are you doing?
other people. But I just think when you're playing around a Zen
Okay.
as a teammate, Wrecking Ball can get to
Ultimately, he goes down to the Cassidy, it looks like.
packs as to really reduce the burden of Zenyatta's healing, but also he's really quick and can go finish off kills and chase down discords. Regardless of what they changed about him, I think he just fits in the way the meta's being played. He can get rolled by
What's this? In a poke game? In a game that is poke heavy, apparently because of these two, turns out that dive heroes are pretty good at answering it? Weird.
all the disables, but as long as he gets in and does his job to set up those range characters or even just keep any
What if instead of setting up the range characters, though that's a good goal, what if he knocked something away so it could be discorded and so that Tracer could finish it off? Too much? Too complicated for ladder? Okay.
engagement tank off of his range characters, I think Wrecking Ball's like really strong still. And guys, that's everything for the tier list video. It's been a while since we've done this.
So it sounds like he's done here. And if we look at this, we'll do an overall thing. I really have to decide how this is aimed. Like, if this is, how do I want to set this and move it around? Because I really have to decide, is this based on how much they're being played or based on their strength? And I think I'm going to move this around based on strength of the heroes. I think I'm going to move things around based on the strength of these heroes a little bit in the meta, not strictly how much they're being played. They're related concepts, but they're not quite the same thing. And here's how I'm going to do this. So if we're going with our strength of heroes, this is going to do... Oh, you've given me a bad template to work with here. Okay, so if I look at this, we've got Zen, we've got Hawk. I disagree. You could maybe move Hog down based on pick rate, based on his actual strength. Even on ladder, he doesn't belong in S or even A tier, but I know he's getting played a lot. Fine, I can live with it. So I guess we'll do this. By like pick rate with a secondary consideration for strength. I'm gonna move Hog down. That's happening. That has to happen. Because the thing is, if Hog isn't being moved down, we're picking Anna every time. If we're picking Anna every time, we're picking Anna and Zen every time. We can't do it. Like, that just doesn't, that like fundamentally doesn't work. And we know that. So we're moving Hog down. Fine. We're looking at the rest of this. We have to move Mercy down. It's not an option. Mercy has to move down here. Yes, we're seeing some poke. Mercy is moving down. That is the thing that's happening. Tracer has to move up here. Tracer is moving up to the A tier. That is a thing that is happening. I'm not really accepting arguments about that. We are going to... So these will be my big arrows. Okay. And then what we want to do... let's actually just go like this. Hog. Big blue arrow means down a tier. Big blue arrow means down a tier. Big blue arrow means up a tier. Smaller yellow arrow... I mean, honestly, I just want to spread these out more. This is garbage. So we're going to move... Do I even want to move these guys around? We'll move Bastion down a tier. I'm going to steer towards the top 3 ranks on the ladder because I think that's what he was doing. So if we're steering towards the top 3 ranks, I don't love this, but I'm going to move these down not because I love it, but because I want to spread things out a little bit more. And I have to, in order to spread things out a little bit more, I probably want to... Maybe I keep Cassidy here for now. Maybe I keep Ash here for now. I'm going to move Hanzo at the very least to the top of this tier. So smaller yellow arrow. I'm going to move Torb up to near the top of this tier. I'm going to go ahead and move... Zarya down a tier. I'm going to move Moira down a tier. I'm going to move Junkrat down a tier. I'm gonna move Genji down at least a tier. I'm probably gonna go ahead and move Pharah and Widow down a tier as well. Go like that. I'd probably go more than a tier on some of these is the problem. Like Genji would probably go down more than one tier, but I'm not gonna go to that level of specificity. Um, let's do some more minor move arounds. I want to move you both lower within the tier. I might even move you down a tier. I'm probably moving Reaper down a tier. At the very least, I'm moving you down within the tier. I'm moving you. Tracer's not in this tier anymore. Who do I have in this tier currently? Some of these guys. Yeah, I'm moving Doomfist down. I'm definitely moving down a tier. Sim can live here. Mei is down to the lower portion of the tier, if not like back of the tier, if not down to another tier. Like, this is just such a mess to fix at this point. I'm not even sure it makes sense to do so. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I'd probably end up moving Genji down further. I would end up moving Genji down further, so let's like move him down further. I'm probably moving you down a little bit further. You're not the worst thing in the world, but I'm probably moving you down a little bit further. I'll live with that. I can mostly live with what's here. Soldier always does a bit better on ladder than individually. Winston might move down a tier. Okay. I've created a better tier list. I haven't created a perfect tier list, but I've created a better tier list. Okay, let's take a look here. I can't help noticing that almost everyone has an arrow on them. You would be correct. You would be correct. Zarya same tier as Moira. Guess I'm a Sigma main now. I mean, yeah, Zarya's not in great shape. Zarya is not in great shape. She has places that she can be used. Basically, like, she requires a Winston. So, and Winston pretty much requires an Ana. And there's enough Ana. So if you've got a Winston buddy that you're pairing with, you can go, hey, and if you've got good synergy, you can abuse those two, and that's fine, and you can be good. And Zarya probably moves up a tier. But if we're not just assuming full-time Winston, I'd move her down. Yeah, that's gonna work. Mm-hmm. How would this tier list look for metal ranks? That's quite the movement. If I'm looking at metal ranks, if I do this tier list for metal ranks, let me think about this for a second. Good hero for metal ranks. Good hero for metal ranks. Passable hero for metal ranks. Passable hero for metal ranks. Good hero for metal ranks. Good hero for metal ranks. Passable to good. Honestly, a good hero for most metal ranks. Undervalued hero for most metal ranks. Solid enough. What have I done? I've covered a few supports. I've covered a few DPS. I probably need to give a little bit more tank coverage here. Tanks are hard for metal ranks. They play them wrong a lot. A lot. The truth is, Orisa would be good, but most people don't want to learn her, and most metal ranks don't understand her, but they won't complain as hard. Like, Reinhardt isn't actually a terribly good tank, but you can get some value out of the metal ranks because you'll have a lot of double flex support, and he can just abuse the silly amount of healing that he'll get, and opponents won't kite him terribly well, so you can sometimes get away with not having Lucio. Lucio's also great. Orisa, like, you can carry with any of the main tanks in the metal ranks, but the problem is you do need to mechanically outdo your opponents if you're talking about the metal ranks, and that becomes tough. I mean, I look at Sigma here, that's a reasonably good option. Hog is a reasonably good option, but again, it becomes a how hard are you out mechanicking them type thing. Diva would be good if you played her right, but the metal ranks very rarely play her right. Orisa is less bad if played wrong and is pretty good, so I'm probably going to go with Orisa here. Something like this. I mean, I'm not doing a full re-tier listing for the metal ranks, but if I look at it, you know, these are heroes that become, hey, these are interesting, attractive, they can do good things for the metal rank players there. You pick Ryan in metal ranks so his team has morale. That's unfortunately his biggest buff to his team, yeah. Morale passive, exactly. A morale passive OP. Okay. Let's take another look there. Write himself a guide on how to stop jumping. There's a lot of jumping on that play we saw. Gameplay review would be better than the tier list review. Second YouTube account called Frito Overwatch, so I could post a bitter response on a video like this and surprise Temporal. Okay. Paying for a micro review of the terrible Rhine. Let's go back and see. I don't think we actually got a ton more terrible Rhine here, but let's do another quick. We can do a little bit of Rhine review.
I think Ryan's going to need some of those Overwatch 2 buffs to come.
Let's mute him because that's not interesting anymore. Okay, so we've got some Reinhardt. We have control here. We're not going to do a full micro review of Rhine, guys, but I'll spend a moment since there was a super chat. Okay, you can go for that fire strike if you want. You let them get inside. Like, it's a mistake in the first place against Sim to have gone out here. This is a mistake. Like, you basically just surrender this. You can let your DPS maybe threaten a bit out here, but you did not want to go out there when they had a Sim. That's just bad scouting that you would let them do this, and then they have the inside. You do not, as Reinhardt, want to have to push into this. It's part of why the first battle is so important. So, shouldn't have gone out here in the first place. Sure. I mean, you got gifted that, but we'll take it. Fire striking nothing, but fine. What else do we have here? Fire striking basically nothing without good prediction of where they'd be. Yeah, I can live with that shatter. Okay. And now we've teleported back to here again. Again against, do they have Sim? No, they don't have Sim anymore, so you can be out here. Why did you turn to walk away? Are you trying to get pinned? You can't turn to walk away like that. And now you're just trying to hold courtyard. Stop trying to hold courtyard. Stop it. She rallied, so you walk at them. Yeah. Swing at the bubble. You could have canceled that swing. I don't know why you were spending a charge. You were nano. Charging generally isn't a good idea when nanoed, guys. The miss is just too expensive because you're giving up a ton of nano time on the charge and then the unwind animation from the pin. You're just doing shield botting shenanigans there. Are you going to walk and swing or not? Why are you just gifting them shield? Okay, that's enough mini Rhine review there. Let's get back to our tier list. Don't forget the Rhine review. We just did our little Rhine review there. We're okay. I mean, it wasn't the best Rhine in the world by any means. We give a shield too freely. We don't consider, oh wait, you have to be aware of the Sim threat of TPing past you, especially on Lijiang Tower, on Night Market, and Control Center. You have to be aware in your positioning as Reinhardt, and how you do your choke holding has to factor in how opponents can move with Sim TPs. Like, that is a requirement. Metal tier solid. Okay. Good. Anything else I want to cover here? Okay. Tomito's tier list is actually based. Tomito can be okay, but he's also be very mean and very Pepe. Is it though? Because he put Reaper at like 6? Did he put Reaper at 6? I don't think that makes a ton of sense right now. Reaper's not terrible, but I don't think the 6th best hero. That's definitely an oversell of Reaper. Anything else interesting here? Okay. According to Smurf in my game yesterday, unless you're 4.4K, you aren't smurfing. Okay. Okay. Oh, you're broke. I'm sorry to hear that, Ronan. Sorry to hear that. Hope things go well for you, but you know, maybe we can find a way to make you better regardless. And then we're back to the beginning. Okay, let's do one final check. What is with this tier list? Yeah, it's a pretty rough one. It's a pretty rough one, Beanie. Okay, that's going to do it. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you have, please drop a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. If you'd like to get coaching, that is something I offer, and you can join my Discord in the description below, see what rates look like. You can also join the Discord to see what events we have going on, if we have any scrims planned, or to see what I'm covering topic-wise, so you can see, do I want to tune into this temporal stream? Do I want to be able to comment, ask questions, pick the brain of a former top contenders coach, see what's going on in the collegiate scene, see reviews of other guides, of tier lists, of things like that, or, you know, see temporal covering macro things, or mini guides, all that good stuff. See what's going on in the community by joining that Discord there. But I think that's going to do it. And I will... If you get coaching from Temporal, all of your heroes will be S tier. Exactly. That is the way to do it. Hope you guys have enjoyed. Thanks.